Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Dark Season 3, Episode 5. It's called Life and Death. And little did I know that the word Todd was literally death in German. But the episode told me. It was Toad, I think, but still. It gave me a chuckle, okay? It gave me a chuckle.
Sure, it's hilarious.
Give me a chuckle. Alright, so this episode kind of blew the timeline open a little bit.
Yeah, what the hell happened?
Or closed it, or started it. Because this is the thing. So, the end of the episode, of course, obviously we're going to go back and talk about all the beats, but the big ending of the episode is that Jonas gets killed. Eva, along with the other Marthas of her own descent, or not descent, she's the oldest one, but you know what I mean, all the ones on her timeline, they essentially lure Jonas into a trap. Obviously, the youngest one, who's with Jonas, who's just had sex with him, isn't expecting this. She's in shock. She's crying. She's trying to save him. But the others all like, no, this is it. This is time. This is when this is supposed to happen. So the big thing is though, is that, okay, so the initial thing that I would think is that, okay, this is the start of the final cycle, or this is the change. This is why middle-aged Jonas, the stranger, doesn't remember anything, is because this is not the Jonas he came from, because this one dies. However, the way Eva talks about it, as if she said, I think the exact line is, it all starts again, as if this is something they've done before.
Yeah, which is baffling right now. Honestly, I'm like, wait, what just happened? Because I'm like, this completely removes Jonas from his timeline, right? How do we get to the stranger and Adam from this point?
If I take away, because okay, let's say that her line, this is where it starts again, isn't a line that says they've done this before. It starts again here because this is where we create a new loop. So we're starting a new cycle of some kind, not the same cycle. We're starting fresh. We're starting again here because they're killing. Because this episode, I think, made it very clear that Adam and Eve are basically trying to save their own world. There are opposing forces in the sense that they both want to save their world. And
yeah, through similar methods.
And even the scene at the cave before they go in, when Martha too says to Jonas, hey, what if she's right though? What if we can only save one world? And there's that awkward silence as the camera comes around, and it's like he's already decided that he wants to save his, and she wants to save hers. So then that's clearly the genesis, even though they don't hate each other yet, even if they might not even hate each other as old people, it may just be like no, ideologically we just oppose each other, even if there's still a connection there. But this is clearly the genesis. There might not
be a personal hatred.
Yeah. But this is clearly the genesis of that split, of that.
It is. I love that shot because the whole camera comes around and it ends on them just in the same places, just on opposite sides, as to where they were a second ago, and it's just really effective.
Yeah. So if we take it in that sense, and this is like her fighting back, is like her way of winning is taking Adam out of the game potentially. If that's even like this show is never given as the instant removal of the timeline kind of thing. It's never given as the because someone got killed early on, their older self just disappears. It's never given as that. But this certainly messes with the events where this Jonas can never go on and do the things that the stranger's going to do that then leads to what Adam is.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I guess the question I would have is that next episode, do we see changes or what? What do we see in Earth 1 post this event?
I don't know. It's going to be fascinating because young Jonas has kind of been our viewpoint for the entirety of the show. He's maybe not always been the focal point. We have whole episodes in other time periods without him, don't be wrong. But he has been the viewpoint, the entry point, the thing that the viewer latches onto and learns most things through. So to remove him at this stage of the show is extreme.
It's a big move.
It's very bold.
But let's not ignore a couple of parallels here. Let's not ignore the fact that Martha watched Jonas be shot by only slightly older, admittedly, but an older version of herself, just like Jonas watched his Martha be shot by an older version of himself. There's a parallel there that is, and almost to the point where was Adam, if it wasn't for the fact that later on Adam actually speaks to slightly older Martha from Earth 2 and says, hey, here's the origin, because the fact that he even knows that, hey, the entire purpose of Eve sending you two back to that house wasn't to stop the nuclear plant doing anything. It wasn't to go to the barrels. It was to create the origin. The fact that he even knows that suggests that everything we're saying about this changing the timeline is wrong, because Adam knowing this means that there is some knowledge of this.
Yeah, I mean, it depends where he learnt the knowledge, because I think there is the diary, which I don't think we mentioned last time, seems to be written by the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So the diary that's been going through the whole show.
The original, the original. We've always thought of it as Claudia's diary, but it's the original note. So she probably added stuff to it, but the original data came from him.
Yeah, which is fascinating in its own right, I think. But maybe Adam learnt from that about this other world. Who knows? So
what's funny is that if you think of the infinite symbol, right, which is kind of just like an 8 on its side.
Sure.
I almost think the loop here is that there's two separate sections to the loop where they keep alternate between two versions. They keep sort of changing it so that so that's Jonas dying puts us into the second phase where it's this version of events without Jonas, and then all the people try to fix things as it goes along, then creates the first loop again, and it just keeps going back and forth between the two loops.
Okay, so you're taking the infinite symbol kind of literally in a sense.
If only not only because it feels like this is almost a counterpoint to the Martha shooting from last season, but even just the way Jonas dies. He dies in the middle of the family trees where the infinite symbol is between the two of them.
Yes.
So this feels like this is the point in the middle. This is literally the point in the middle where it keeps.
Yeah, it's as as you said, this is where it starts again, which is fascinating because it kind of almost undermines some of the stuff that we learned about the unknown being the origin, right? It kind of takes this moment is the origin in many ways, the beginning and the end.
Yeah, but clearly the unknown's, he's essential for this fulfilling. So it's I don't know. It's a weird chain of a thing. Now, admittedly, I did take a screen cap here of him lying there dead because we get a good look at the family trees.
Yeah, I was trying to look at it during the episode, and I'm like, I can't.
So it has two versions of the family trees. The one on the left is clearly Earth 1, and I'm just judging that based on Mikkel, because Mikkel becomes Michael, and that connection tells us it's that Earth. The one notable thing that really sticks out here, Hanno Tauber, that was the name that we're using for Noah in the 50s.
Yeah, which I'm assuming that is his real name, because obviously Noah is just, it fits in with that biblical theme.
Oh, yeah, Noah's his Adam and Eve, correlation name. Now, I'm not entirely sure who the mother is in this. I don't recognise that first name. But the father is someone we definitely know.
Noah's father?
Yeah, Noah's father.
Okay, go on.
And this is it's on both Earths, this, by the way, not just Earth 1, but it's on both. Bartos. Bartos is Noah's father, going by this family tree.
Did we know that already? Like, it's not surprising me, but I feel like maybe...
Well, the way that Noah went to Bartos in season 1, given how a lot of the meetings and interactions between different time periods have turned out to be either the same person or either the father or the daughter or the son or the like, it's always been a relation. So it doesn't. Yeah, it's not surprising in that sense, and they even look kind of similar now that I think about it. They've got a very similar drawing.
I don't know if we were ever told that explicitly, or if this is the reveal of this information in many ways. But yeah, like I say, it doesn't surprise me, because going back to the start of the show, Noah is the one who kind of brought Bartosz into the everything. Yes.
It's not the easiest tree to read necessarily, because you get the same name appearing in multiple places depending on like how it needs to fit all together. But that was the thing that really stuck out to me. Is I saw his name and went, "Oh God, what's he connected to? What is this?" But yeah, interesting. And then the other one that's really yeah.
Go on.
So if I'm reading this right, and I'm not sure if I am,
which I'm not looking at this for anyone. I'm not seeing this. I don't want to Google it because
you might get something from later in the season. Yeah. You don't want to do that. I mean, hold on. I can send you this. Hold on. So there you go. You've got that.
Okay. Give me 1 second just to open that up.
If you look further down from where Noah is, you'll see Agnes. You can't see her her full name. It's kind of hidden behind Martha's head a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
So, who would you say Agnes's parents are from the way those lines connect?
Well, we know Agnes is Noah's sister, right? We knew that already.
Yes. That's also Bartosi's kid then.
Yes.
We're saying that they're both
with a Tiedemann.
I assume that's just from Bartosi's name. I assume they get married and she takes Bartosi's name.
You could be right on that, yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's too much of an assumption on this show. Because
on any other show, I would just make that assumption, but on this one, I wasn't certain.
Because whoever it is also connects to Hannah. Is that Hannah's kid? Is that Hannah's baby from the 50s?
Celia? It could be. Like you say, it's clearly Hannah's kid.
Yeah, I don't really recognise that name, but given where the line goes, you can't actually. I mean, we have screen capped that you can't see it go all the way up, but I assume that goes up to Egon at the top, from where Hannah's name is.
That would make sense.
Yeah, so that's probably her baby from the 50s.
Yeah, which would be why, which would be a Tiedemann.
It would be, yeah, because I mean, it's not like she kept. Well, it doesn't look like she's going to keep Egon in the picture, but
no, but just
And yes, and broad strokes.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Wait,
stuff.
Does that mean Bartos had kids with her? Let me think about this. So Egon is Bartos's grandfather.
Yes.
And then, so with his great cousin, he's having kids with.
I can't work that out on the top of my head.
It's too complex.
I hate this show.
There's too much of it. Oh dear.
God damn it.
And that was the other thing. What made me think that this episode? There was something about Charlotte and Elizabeth I was thinking this episode where they're not only mother and daughter. No, it wasn't them. It was Jördis and Martha. It wasn't just that they were, nephew and auntie. It was also like great grandkid, assuming that the Tannhaus thing, or I don't know, there was something in my head, I can't remember what it was now, but it was really complex, and in the moment it was like blowing my mind, but I can't remember it well enough to talk about it.
What's interesting about Bartosz is it's the same on both Earths.
Yeah, which implies that somehow Hannah goes back or something.
Potentially, no? Yeah. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
That is an interesting tidbit. How that happens when it's only on the last day of before the apocalypse in the timeline, this episode.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of accelerated elements in Earth 2, somehow. I'm not entirely sure how it's all going to happen, because, Ulrich's still in the present day.
The killing of Jördis has delayed this apocalypse on Earth 2. And so all this happens on Earth 2 when it can't happen on Earth 1, or vice versa.
That could work.
It could be something like that.
Yeah, that could work.
Wonky stuff. But I wanted to bring it up because it was interesting stuff. So I don't recognize that Tiedemann name. Bartos's presumed wife there, or at the very least, it's Egon and Hannah's daughter. But
yeah, I would say you're probably right in terms of it. They've just given her Bartos's name, because if you look on Earth 2's side, Hannah has the Nielsen name.
Yeah.
So that would be correct, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I wanted to. I was waiting to bring that up for that. Okay. So we get to the rest of the episode now.
That wasn't complicated at all.
So, I guess we'll just stay on the Jonas and Martha stuff. There's not much more to say outside of he basically second guesses everything because she gets a cut. Although we do have a good scene where Katharina's there when she's getting up, and she's notably concerned because she's not seen her daughter in a day. And also, who's this guy? Who's this boy that you've got here coming down from your bedroom? This is not.
She doesn't question that as much as you'd think, though.
Honestly, I think the fear that something bad happened to her probably overtook it a little bit, but then I think the way Martha kind of goes up and hugs her and says it's all going to be okay is so weird and morose that she's just confused and feeling too many things to even get into the typical parent high chair of
yeah. She's just for a second, and who even is he? It's just a confusion as to who he is more than anything, I think.
So Yeah, that was basically their stuff. Some really big stuff in this episode. I mean, I think the Elizabeth stuff was very hard hitting. And the
frustratingly predictable, the entire scene. Like like a lot of it where you know where it's going, but you're just like, God damn it.
I thought it was fairly well shot though, and the way it was presented was pretty strong. Where she decides to not go, she's like, no, like my mom and my sister are dead. I'm not doing this anymore to her dad. And she goes back to the caravan, the trailer, I guess, for Americans. And there's a guy there, and he says, "Don't be scared at first." Of course, she can't hear him.
She's obviously reading his lips at this point, though.
Yeah, sure, she can sort of get a bit, but clearly he doesn't know that she's deaf.
No, not at all.
And once, because he knocks her out and ties her hands up, so she can't even like do a bit of sign language to sort of like indicate that, hey, I can't speak to you. I physically can't.
Because he gets like, really threatening, like he's like, oh, answer me, and she just can't.
Yeah, and then it turns like the way you think it's probably going to turn, where he gets kind of creepy and pervy, and then it's clear that he's going to try and rape her. Peter just sort of arrives back in time, but this guy's bigger than Peter. He can't, Peter's getting his ass kicked basically. Elizabeth gets herself free with a knife, tries to stab the guy, tries to
jumps on his back,
saves her father, and it goes real down. And this is Peter's death, and it's not like super surprising. He kind of had to be taken out of the picture for her story, given where she ends up, and given how sort of much of a hardened kind of like post-apocalyptic badass she kind of is. It makes sense that she has some rough times to become that.
Yeah, and we know something's got to drive her towards Noah.
Yeah, and that's obviously the final thing we see in the montage is like younger Noah kind of like finding her, because she does kill the guy. Like, after he kills Peter, she bashes his brains in with the fire extinguisher, and there's just blood dripping from it.
She goes hard.
Yeah, so
I want to commend this sequence in general for the show, because obviously we're talking a reasonable amount about some really strong direction in this show all the time.
Yeah,
but it's rare this show does action sequences or fight scenes that are beyond like a short little brawl between two characters that already know each other. This life or death fight,
I think
it's pretty different to most other situations the show's ever had.
The other thing I think we have to say here is that it did a good job of feeling tense and having enough emotion and engagement, despite the fact that the outcome. Actually, we didn't necessarily know that this is definitely the moment where Peter's going to die, but it seems fairly plausible given that we've only got 4 episodes left and we have to start getting to things.
That really strong feeling of, even though you know this is it, you know in your heart, okay, this is it. Peter's dying here. You want to be wrong. You want the show to prove you wrong.
I was going to call it the Better Call Saul thing, like how you do like a prequel properly. It's kind of like that. Well, obviously it's not a prequel in this case, but in the idea that we kind of know the outcome, but it's the dread of it happening that kind of makes it work. So no, I thought that was commendable.
Yeah,
that stuff was really strong. There was a little bit as well with young Charlotte meeting young Peter, which again, the casting in this for the different age versions of characters,
so
because
good.
As soon as he walked off the bus, I'm like, that's Peter. It's him. Like, it's a different actor, but it's him.
He's got the jawline down.
Yeah, and I think just the other thing as well is that as soon as I realised it was him, I was like, oh yeah, we've not seen this age of Peter in this period.
Because we always knew he came to Wyndon later. We've known this for a long time. Like early season 1 was, when you arrived here, had Helga already, moved out of the cabin? Sort of, was he still living there? So this, it isn't surprising that this is happening now.
Yeah, so we get their first meeting, and likewise, Charlotte sort of asks Tannhaus some questions about our parents, and he talks about how he had a son, and his son with his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter were all killed in a car accident. Although notably, the granddaughter was never found. Like, they never found the body of the child. Only
that is
the adults.
Interesting. I mean, on other shows, again, I'd be like, okay, that's just one of those moments for dramatic effect. Here, I'm not so sure.
I don't know. I think that's the sort of thing. That very specific detail's the sort of thing that in almost anything I'd be going, that's intentionally something that can come back up later.
No, that's fair. But it was fascinating, this story they told, because he mentions how on the night that this accident happened, before it happened, he was woken up in the middle of the night. And he comes and says, and there was 2 women there.
And I've got a
And-
guess as to who the two women are based on another scene in this episode.
Oh yeah, I was already having
Yeah.
thoughts at this point as to who it was, and pretty much on the money, to be honest. But already I'm like, okay, and they give him baby Charlotte, but tell him this is the night that you're gonna lose everything,
I
but
think
you're gonna gain everything.
No, a key point here though is that I don't think she has the name Charlotte yet. I think because he takes the name from the watch, because he pulls out the watch and it says for Charlotte. Because he says this is all you had on you, so it very much implies that she is named after that watch. Now,
yes, when I say baby Charlotte, I didn't mean she was. They went, this is Charlotte, but
so this is the thing. In this show, I don't know if there was just someone else named Charlotte this watch comes from and she's named after it, or if it's a time loop thing again where like this watch was for the real Charlotte and then was also then used to name baby Charlotte.
Yeah,
with
it's just another bootstrap paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see where it goes with that. But given there's a scene in the future, in the 2050s, much like last episode with Agnes going back to give the newspaper clipping of Claudia, Claudia's body being found, a very similar thing here where Charlotte, who of course we established in the last episode, or maybe there's the one before that she's in the 2050s, along with adult Elizabeth, who notably also adult Francesca is also there to hug them goodbye. I was excited. I think all three of them are hugging, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like them all hugging goodbye, because this is, like, it's so funny because obviously from Charlotte's perspective, it's not been that long since the main timeline of the show, but for Francesca and Elizabeth, they've not seen their mother in potentially such a long
30
time.
odd years,
Yeah.
maybe.
So they're having this big goodbye, but I have to assume that the two women that give Tannhaus baby Charlotte are going to be these two.
Yeah, that is my assumption too. I mean, already I was thinking probably those two always made sense, because okay, it's herself and her mother, right? Essentially.
Well, I don't know if by this scene it established they were both together yet, which is why I don't know if my mind jumped to those two specifically together.
Fair enough. I mean, mine did, just because they were the pair that made sense, even though they weren't together. Just they were the pair that dramatically made sense.
In fact, my initial thought with the whole baby thing is that is this just his granddaughter really then? And then I thought, no, well, A, it can't be for various reasons, but also I assumed that he would recognize his own granddaughter, especially since
I don't know. The granddaughter was presumably a baby as well, right?
the kid in the photo looked a bit older than that, I think.
Okay.
But no, I think he would recognize. But even then, we know who Charlotte's parents are, so it doesn't actually make any sense anyway. But it was just it was one of those passing thoughts, and then my memory of everything else in the show clicked, and I went, no, it can't be because this. But
it does make you question who.
Where is that baby?
Yeah.
Or that toddler, or whatever age they were. But yeah, very very interesting stuff.
And the accident that he mentioned they were run off the road into the river, I think.
Was that them as well? I don't know.
Well, that does mean who did that? Like, who was it? Was it an accident, or was this intentional?
Oh, I'm willing to bet that it's not an accident. It's just a question of who.
and why is a pretty good question.
Yeah,
as well,
why is also good too. But I mean, maybe it's the unknown.
It's one of the few things in this show where we don't need to ask when.
Yes. How?
It has a date that it happens.
Why? When? Yeah, all those, all the questioning words, they all come up in this show. They've all had significant time to shine in the discussion of this. So, so that was the Elizabeth Charlotte stuff. Claudia meets Claudia too. Claudia in just after the apocalypse in 2020-ish.
Yeah, and this one I actually want to mention where we cut to this scene, because it was fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, I noticed this as well. It didn't do the whoosh thing. It faded to black, and then just sort of came up from black again, and we were back because it switched there. So it was definitely a switch of Earths.
Yeah, and we know it was a switch of Earths because we were in the 2050s post-apocalypse, Earth 1 version. It was clear.
2020s. Yeah,
2020s. Okay, either way, we were in that version of the apocalypse, so we knew that.
Because you just buried Regina from the previous.
Yes, you're right. Those two time periods really easy to blend together. Like I say, they're so visually similar.
I'm doing better now that they've really established who's in what time period, but I mean...
Yeah. That's fair. But I thought it was really fascinating that they didn't do the thing then. And I don't know if it was just because they knew it was obvious, or if there's some deeper meaning. I also was paying attention for, that false start effect that we were talking about last time. And we speculate, oh, it's the first time it switched. And it wasn't. Because the first time it switched, it did it normally. It was like the second time in this episode where it did the false start instead.
Interesting. Yeah, because it was with Katarina it did it with, because I remember it on her face.
Yeah.
No, I mean, maybe it's this idea of, like, because there was a character from Earth 2 in this scene, there's, like, some sort of weird, I don't know, like, it was, like, we're building up to a character reveal from that Earth, so it was more of a thematic thing than it was anything else.
It's interesting that it's making me question it.
Yeah.
But maybe it is just because they knew it was so clear in terms of the setting that they were going to, that they didn't think they needed to.
Maybe what we were talking about earlier about how there's like two parts to the loop where one cancels the other one out and they kind of keep swapping back and forth. Maybe that's struggling, as we call it. Maybe that's because it's about to end and that other version isn't going to exist for a while or something. Or but then again, that could be complete nonsense. Once we start the next episode and it's still going back and forth, like you know, we're already going to be past that point if it is.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, but yeah, I was paying attention as well. I did notice that we didn't do that transition on that particular, because it was doing it a lot this episode. There was a lot of jumping back and forth this episode.
Yeah, but that one stood out to me as just no, we're not doing it that time.
Yeah. So yeah, basically she gives her the diary. This is where Claudia gets the diary. She gets it from Earth 2 Claudia, who, you know, is clearly Earth 2 Claudia because she, you know, different hair, looks different. Obviously by the end of the scene she also has the ball thing as well. So it's obviously there's no question.
Says I'm from another Earth.
Well, she does, yes. But says that, you know, like you've been on Team Adam, but you should be on Team Eva, and you should, you know, work towards these things. Make sure this happens. Make sure Jonas goes on the path that he's supposed to.
It was very specific. It's like, you know, you'll have to guide him, make sure he goes on the path, but ultimately you'll have to betray him as well.
Yeah, it's getting very complex, and I don't suspect that we're going to get a whole lot of details on some of these Earth 2 counterparts. Like, I don't think Earth 2 Claudia is something we're going to see a lot of. I think we're just going to have to let our imagination fill in a lot of the blanks, because they don't have time to show us like how all these characters become these versions on Earth 2.
No, it's taken multiple seasons just to do it on Earth 1. We have to assume that a lot of the events are similar, I think, for the most part. And
the differences are going to be pointed out, because the differences are going to be what's important when they arise. So yeah, interesting stuff for sure. I say that a lot in Dark, but it is.
So it's a fascinating show to just try and think about.
Yeah, so obviously a big scene that I mentioned earlier was the Elizabeth scene with Peter's death. All that stuff I thought was really well done. The other stuff that I think also quite monumental, maybe not quite as dramatic, but definitely has some big weighty moments in it, is the Katarina stuff, where she plans to break out Ulrich, and there's even a moment he gets to say sorry to her. That's the only word he says, or the only sentence he says the whole time is, I'm sorry.
And she's so sincere, and she's like, I'm going to get you out of here, I promise. And she promises multiple times.
And her plan is basically to mug her own mother on her way home and take her key card so she can come back and get him.
Yeah, because she knows the route she takes. She knows where she'll be alone, knows where she keeps the key card. It'll be easy.
And to be fair, I think it's very, very realistic that she's not actually good at this, and immediately it doesn't feel like it's going that well. You know, her mother immediately knows she's been followed. And then, of course, this fight erupts, and it's when they're struggling she calls her mum. So her mother gets this seed in her mind of, I mean, obviously she's not going to believe her right away, but she does have that moment of like, or even the first time she saw her, like, you know, you seem familiar, you look familiar, there's something there, there's that deja vu, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in this case, it doesn't have to be deja vu, but I'm just going to say that because it ties into like that recognition element that all the characters seem to have in one way or another.
It's annoying because it's such a common phrase, especially in this context, that you want to use, but it has such a specific meaning within this show.
And it becomes this fight, and they're out by the water. We've explained how the penny necklace ends up in the dark because it's like grabbed off and it gets, you know, sort of just trampled on.
For Jonas to find years later.
Yeah. And yeah, so, and it's like, and I don't think, and there was a moment where I was sort of watching this and I was like, Katharina can't die here, because first and foremost, we know that Mikkel can't be saved. Like, her whole plan is to eventually go with Ulrich to go and get Mikkel, and they can't do it because the timeline doesn't change. And, you know, we've never seen old woman Katharina in any context.
I know. I was like, well, either of these could die. Like, I didn't know who was going to kill who, and it was fascinating because there's a knife going around. Oh my god, is she going to accidentally kill her own mother?
Yeah, because we never actually really get much about her mother in present day, so I didn't know.
Because they obviously have such a bad relationship that they're just there is nothing. Maybe she is dead already. I don't know. I can't remember.
That's kind of the point. Is that I, at least from memory, I didn't know if we knew anything about her, if she was still alive, and if she wasn't still alive, this could be when she died. Like
easily, yeah.
There was a genuine question, and she does bash her mother's head a bit with the rock, but when she goes to the key card, because she's not killed her though, she doesn't want to kill her necessarily. Her mother gets up and just bashes her head in repeatedly, and it adds this really dark layer to her, her abuse of her daughter, the way she treats her. And, there's that follow-up scene where she goes home, and it's the same sort of situation we saw last time where Karoline is sitting doing her homework at the table, and she sees her mother, like, with blood on her, and she's like, hey, she's genuinely concerned. She's like, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And she freaks out, and she slaps her repeatedly and says, I should have got rid of you too. And even says, there's even, again, a really ironic line which says, oh, you don't live up to that name. And the fact that we know that name comes from Hannah is, like, the irony, the monumental irony of that situation is unbelievable. But this stuff was really dark, and it was really kind of this, I think what's so sad about this is that it really felt like, obviously, the way Karoline is, like, trying to do this here isn't the best method, and she does, like, sort of fight her and whatnot, but there is kind of this dark undertone of, like, ultimately she was never able to escape the violence of her mother and the abuse of her mother, and her mother ultimately killed her. And there's a moment where she turns and looks at her daughter before she hits her, where she's looking at her and she's remembering what Karoline said to her. She's, she called her mum, and she's looking at her and goes, and she can see it, she can see the resemblance, but she doesn't want to believe it, so she lashes out at her, and it's just this I
understand why she lashes out here. She's terrified.
Yeah.
Alongside everything, and she's obviously just through a traumatic experience. She's just killed someone and then weighed the body down and throw it in the lake. So, she didn't have an easy walk home. There's
this guilt, this lashing out of guilt, which is kind of like this sort of thing that you see from a lot of abusers, is that they get worse the more that, rather than accept what they've done, it just, in a way to sort of mask it, they get more abusive. And it's this vicious cycle. And what this show is all about cycles. It's all about things,
self-perpetuating.
Yeah. So, yeah, thought that was really well done too.
Yeah, this was a great episode.
Yeah. Everything kind of was clicking. Again, there was that point, like, there's always a point about a third into one of these episodes where before it started to get to its big dramatic high points for each storyline, where I'm like, man, this is cutting around a lot. This is going to be hard to keep my head around. But then by the time it ends and they've all had these big beats to make it feel like every single character had a story and everything had, like, a big dramatic conclusion, where I'm like, oh, it actually does sit quite well now that it's finished. Now that it's ended, everything kind of falls into place and it makes some sense in my head. And it's not that it's confusing early on, it's just that it's cutting around so many characters. I'm like, okay, what's the point of this episode? Because it's other TV shows, usually once you're about a third of the way into the episode, you might not know how it's going to end exactly, but you can kind of see what the main character arc is going to be, or at least who the character arc is going to be for, and one way or the other it's going to get to a boiling, or a boiling point with X character or X relationship. With this show, because there's so many things going on across different timelines, dimensions, and you don't know who's going to go and interact with who.
It's sometimes not until, like, it goes into that montage where you know exactly, okay, this is the end point for each arc.
Yeah. So, no, that was a great episode. All these high points paying off.
Yeah,
for sure.
I can't wait to watch more.
No, it is worth mentioning. Tomorrow is probably a day that we will skip. We won't have an episode review out tomorrow, so don't worry, I'll be back the day after. But it's just unfortunate the schedule means that has to be the case. But once we're back, we'll be back to daily until we're done. We got 3 left, obviously, so that should mean, so this is going out on Thursday, so it should be Saturday, Sunday, Monday will be the last 3 episodes. So look out for those. But yeah, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Like and subscribe. You can of course get us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, and support us and keep all the content coming. Liking is really important on YouTube, of course, as well, because it does it lets YouTube recommend us out more often and gets us higher in that old algorithm game that YouTube loves to play. It feels really like, I don't know, there's like a sort of just mathematical, like, depressive quality to talk about the algorithm when I'm trying to, like, promote the show, but ultimately it's how YouTube works, so it's the algorithm. All hail the algorithm.
There's no point in trying to dress it up, because
the algorithm
YouTube's kind of terrible.
Algorithm is the origin, which we all loop around.
Yes, it really is.
So yes, please do that. Guys on Twitter at mail_fudge for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. And of course, if we did, if there was any small beats that we glossed over that you think you want to bring up in the comments, please do. There's so much to take in with these episodes that we're never going to mention absolutely every little thing. We try our best, of course. But yes, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?